Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. I could hear the water running behind the thin bathroom door, the hiss of the shower spraying against tile. Steam seeped out from under the door in lazy tendrils. She always liked it hot, so hot that I could barely stand in there more than a minute before scalding droplets stained my skin. But this time, I didn't follow her. I remained on the edge of the bed, still wearing my rumpled t-shirt and boxers, my hands locked together as if in prayer. In a sense, maybe I was praying. For salvation, for answers, for time to rewind. But mostly, I prayed for the courage to face what I'd suspected for months now. That my life wasn't what I believed. My marriage wasn't what I believed. The shower's rhythm stayed steady, a taunting lullaby in my ears. My palms felt damp. The room felt too small. She tossed her robe on the bed, a faint trace of citrus oil still clinging to the silky fabric. I could smell it, fresh, almost sharp, but with an underlying sweetness that made my stomach clench. It reminded me of how she would come home late, slip past me with a short hello, and claim she had a work spot event, or team building retreat. Always some excuse that ended with this same citrusy note on her skin. How many times had I tried to ignore it? Too many. I stared at the robe. It was folded carelessly, half on, half off the bed. The wave of resentment that bubbled up surprised me. I used to love that robe on her. On our second anniversary, I saved up to buy something nice, a burgundy robe embroidered with her initials on the lapel. She was so delighted back then, kissing my cheek and saying how thoughtful I was. She called me her rock, saying I grounded her. But that was years ago. Before the tension took hold, before I realized that she'd started drifting away. The water shut off. A hush fell over our bedroom, broken by the soft squeak of metal rings on the shower rod. I could picture her stepping out, slender feet on the bath mat, droplets running down her arms, chest, legs. Once, I would have joined her, pressed my face into her neck, inhaled the mixture of soap and her natural scent. We used to be that kind of couple, playful, spontaneous, intimate in every corner of this house. But I couldn't force myself to move now. That intangible barrier had grown between us, a barrier made of suspicion, unspoken truths, and nights where her phone would light up with a text she refused to let me see. By the time she emerged, a towel wrapped tight around her torso, I was standing at the window, watching the streetlights flicker in the early dusk. I did not turn around. I knew she'd say something casual like, "Going to be a late night again tomorrow, honey," or maybe she'd go quiet, expecting me to talk first. But she didn't. She just stood there, the tension thick. Through the reflection in the glass, I caught the slightest shift in her posture, as though she expected me to speak. Her name, Lily, hung in my throat. It used to be a sweet name, a name that made me think of spring blossoms. Now it felt heavy, weighted by betrayal. "Did you need the shower?" she asked finally, her voice carefully measured. She was attempting politeness. "Not yet," I murmured. I forced my tone to stay neutral, trying to hide the swirl of conflicting emotions. "I'll take one later." I heard the faint rustle of fabric as she turned away to dress. She always insisted on having her own set of pajamas. Loose, cotton, comfortable. That used to be endearing, how she'd slip into them and snuggle up to me on the couch. But the last time we cuddled, I couldn't recall. Maybe 6 months, or was it more? I stood there until I heard her bare feet pad across the carpet and leave the room. Even then, I didn't move for a long time. Because deep down, I had the strangest sense that if I followed her, I'd be stepping further into a life I no longer recognized. So I remained, face turned to the window, seeing only darkness beyond, and asked myself for the 1,000th time, is this all a lie? I can't pinpoint the exact moment things shifted, but I can recall signs that, in hindsight, should have been obvious. Late night showers. Sudden text messages from a person labeled only as M, a faint odor of cologne in our laundry that wasn't mine. A constant sense that her mind was miles away, even when her body was right there next to me. She would sit with me at dinner, politely listening to me drone on about work, but her eyes would drift to her phone or the clock, as though she were waiting for something. One night, I found that phone, her phone, on the kitchen counter, buzzing with an incoming text. She'd gone to the grocery store for something trivial, leaving her device behind by mistake. My breath caught as I glanced at the screen. A half-naked photo of a man's torso. I couldn't see his face, but the message read, "Thinking of you, gorgeous." And next to it was that same M. My heart slammed against my ribs. Blood roared in my ears like some distant train rolling through. I remember touching the phone with 2 fingers, almost reverently, like it was a venomous snake. I didn't open the message, didn't dare. Instead, I stood there, frozen in my own kitchen, so stunned I couldn't speak. She came back minutes later, 2 grocery bags in her arms. The phone was face down on the table by then, and I was across the kitchen rummaging in a drawer just to look busy. Part of me wanted to confront her on the spot, slam the phone in front of her eyes, and demand an explanation. But a heavier part of me was afraid. Afraid that if I heard the truth, I wouldn't be able to unhear it. I was clinging to the last threads of my belief that we were just going through a rough patch. That night, I said nothing. I pretended everything was fine. Maybe I was a coward. Or maybe I still loved her so deeply that I wasn't ready to face how far she'd slipped away. In the weeks that followed, more evidence piled up. She'd come home from the supposed girls' night out with the scent of a foreign cologne on her dress. She'd giggle at text messages that she quickly swiped away when I entered the room. Her features started to change too, almost imperceptibly, but I noticed. Her skin took on that citrus-scented glow, as though she'd discovered a new brand of body oil. She seemed more alive, more radiant, but not with me. That stung worst of all. It was clear that her heart was already someplace else. One afternoon, I overheard her call. She stepped into the backyard, forgetting that the window in the kitchen was still open. The wind carried her voice inside. There was laughter, a playful hush, and in the middle of it, I heard the name Marcus slip out. My chest clenched so tight I had to muffle a cough. Suddenly, the water she'd left boiling on the stove spilled over, sizzling on the burner. She came rushing back in, phone in hand, cheeks flushed, but not with guilt, more like the thrill of anticipation. The next day, she gave me some excuse about going to a friend's house. But I knew better. I could see it in her eyes, in the way she asked, "You'll be okay alone, right?" As if she were already gone. Still, I said nothing. I was paralyzed. I asked myself why. Was it pride? Fear? Love? Maybe all 3. But mostly, I think it was that I still pictured a future with her. We had a son, Michael, 6 years old, bright as a flame. I couldn't shake the image of the 3 of us sitting down for Thanksgiving or celebrating Christmas morning. Even if it meant turning a blind eye to her betrayal, I clung to that image. A foolish man, you might say, but I was a husband, a father, a man who believed in the vows we exchanged. And so I let it continue, hoping it might be a passing phase that would correct itself. But illusions only last so long. The breaking point arrived on a Tuesday evening. She'd left her laptop open, as if daring me to look. Maybe she was careless. Maybe she wanted me to see, to force the conflict we'd both been tiptoeing around. Whatever her motive, there it was. A chat window with the same name I'd seen on her phone, Marcus Hayes. The messages were explicit, laced with desire. My wife's words jumped out at me with horrifying clarity. "I need to feel you again. Last time was unforgettable. When can we be alone?" My stomach lurched. I stared at those lines like a surgeon spotting a tumor on an X-ray. In that moment, I couldn't deny it anymore. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't an overactive imagination. She was having an affair, a real, physical, passionate affair, and they were brazen enough to plan their next rendezvous in writing. I heard footsteps behind me. She must have come back looking for her phone or some other item. I quickly closed the laptop, But it was too late. The look in my eyes must have told her everything because she paused, a container of leftover pasta in her hands, and stared at me. We stayed like that for a long second, saying nothing. Then, in a quiet voice that barely trembled, I said, "You might want to finish your chat." Her eyes went wide, the container slipping from her grip. It hit the floor with a hollow thud, sending the lid rolling under the kitchen table. "Jonathan," she whispered, my name catching in her throat. "I can explain." "Can you?" I asked, my voice steady but low, like I was cross-examining her in court. "Because I'd like to hear it." She opened her mouth, but no words came. I saw a tear form at the corner of her eye, and yet my own eyes stayed dry. I felt locked inside a shell, my emotions swirling behind a wall of restraint. Don't lose control, I warned myself. Don't let her see you break. My father always told me that a man who yells in a crisis is a man who's already lost. I recalled those words now, and though I wanted to shout, to smash that laptop, or throw accusations at her, I stayed calm. "It's not what you think," she managed, her voice shaky. "Really?" Because it looked pretty straightforward to me. Another silence. Then she tried again. I never meant to. I've been feeling. I was alone, and he paid attention to me. He made me feel. She trailed off. Even in that moment, I could see she was struggling to form a coherent thought, as though she feared one wrong word would shatter everything. But it was already shattered. I slowly stood up, pressing my palms against the table to keep my composure. "You'd better clean up that pasta," I said, my voice even. Then I left the room. No yelling, no slamming doors. Just an exit, quiet and deliberate. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me beg or lose my temper. That night, ironically, we had a small family gathering planned. Her parents were coming over to celebrate my mother-in-law's birthday. We didn't cancel. She insisted it would look suspicious if we called it off. "Let's just get through dinner," she murmured, eyes puffy from crying. "And we can talk after." "Sure," I said. I could sense her relief that I hadn't told her parents anything yet. Maybe she thought I wouldn't. But I wasn't sure what I would do. As the hours ticked by, I found myself tasting bitterness in every breath. Love was clashing violently with rage in my chest. She was the woman I married, the mother of my child, the partner I'd planned to grow old with. Yet now, every time I looked at her, I pictured him. This Marcus, with his toned torso and confident grin. I pictured them tangled together, heard the echoes of her moans in my mind. My hand shook as I poured scotch into a glass, so I set the bottle aside. Getting drunk wouldn't help. Her parents arrived around 6. My father-in-law, Harold, greeted me with a firm handshake. He was a proud man, ex-military, used to discipline and order. He gave me a quick nod, then moved on to hug Lily. Her mother, Diane, bustled in, all smiles, arms full of groceries for the dinner. "Where's my grandson?" she asked brightly. "Michael's upstairs," Lily said. Her voice was strained, but her parents seemed not to notice. I forced myself to smile, stepping aside so they could take their coats off. We congregated in the living room. I saw Lily trying to remain composed, her expression calm. But every so often, her gaze flicked my way, searching for something in my eyes. Mercy, maybe, or a promise that I wouldn't explode. I gave her nothing. Dinner commenced in awkward stiffness. Diane asked about my job, about the usual quarter-end hustle in the logistics business. Lily chimed in, describing her part-time marketing gig at the boutique. We were playing the same old roles, husband and wife, gracious hosts. Except inside me, everything had changed. My appetite was non-existent. I pushed a slice of roast chicken around my plate, nodding politely at the conversation. Every time Lily spoke, my mind conjured images of her phone lighting up with Marcus's messages. The tension felt suffocating. Halfway through dessert, Diane casually remarked, "Oh, Lily, you're glowing. Any special reason, dear?" She smiled conspiratorially, as if expecting news of a second child. My jaw tensed. I couldn't speak. Lily went white as a sheet. For a flicker of a moment, I thought she'd break down. But she managed a trembling laugh. "No, Mom. Just using a new moisturizer, that's all." The words were so innocuous, but they punctured me like a bullet. A new moisturizer. In my head, I heard it. Citrus oil. My fists clenched under the table. Lily caught the movement and quickly changed the subject. Her parents remained oblivious. I sat there, silent, eyes fixed on my slice of cake I hadn't touched. We finished dinner. The performance concluded. Then we said our goodbyes, Lily hugging her parents at the door while I pretended to check a text on my phone. As soon as the door closed, Lily and I were alone in the hallway. She looked up at me, searching my face. "John," she whispered, "I'm sorry. I was going to tell you." Stop. I cut her off, my voice barely more than a hiss. "We'll talk later." She flinched, tears brimming again. But she nodded. Weeks passed in a strained coexistence. We didn't openly fight, but there were words left unsaid in every glance, every quiet dinner. Michael asked why Mommy seemed so sad, and I had no answer. That was the worst part, seeing the confusion on my son's face. But a storm was brewing beneath my silence. I collected every clue I could. Spa receipts with Marcus's name, phone calls that ended abruptly when I walked in, the faint traces of guilt in her eyes whenever she came home late. I carried these clues like evidence in a court case, building an indictment in my mind. Then I made a decision. I ordered a DNA test for Michael. I'd always brushed aside the notion that my son's eyes weren't quite like mine, or that his build was somehow off. But as the affair revelations mounted, I couldn't ignore the possibility. I took a sample from one of his juice cups he'd left on the table and sent it off, heart pounding. Guilt nipped at my conscience. He was my son, regardless of biology, right? Still, the question seethed in my mind. If she lied about Marcus, maybe there had been others. Maybe I'd been living in the shadow of a lie for 6 years. The results arrived in a plain envelope one morning. I remember sliding my thumb under the seal, each breath jagged as I unfolded the paper. The verdict: no match. A cold finality washed over me. I read it twice, 3 times. No match. Michael wasn't my biological son. My chest felt hollow. It was a heartbreak beyond measure, like losing a part of myself I never knew was in jeopardy. But then a new emotion surged, anger, sharpened into something lethal. She'd stolen the most precious thing from me, my sense of truth, my sense of identity. Every memory of Michael's birth, his first steps, our father-son moments, now tainted by the knowledge that Lily had withheld the truth of his parentage. I felt betrayed in a way I didn't know was possible. That evening, she came home to find me sitting at the kitchen table. The test results lay in front of me. I watched her read them. Her eyes widened, then she sank into a chair, face in her hands. For a moment, I almost felt pity, almost reached out. But the coldness in me prevailed. "John," she said softly, voice muffled by her palms. I didn't. I wasn't sure. It was a mistake. "You never told me." My voice sounded detached, as though it belonged to someone else. "I spent 6 years believing he was mine. And you never told me." Tears dripped through her fingers. She started to speak, but I cut her off. "Is Marcus his father?" I asked. I needed to know everything. She shook her head vigorously. "No, not Marcus. It was someone else, long before. Before we married, he left. I was scared, Jonathan. I loved you. I saw how good you were, how caring, and I convinced myself it didn't matter. You were always going to be his father. How convenient for you." My sarcasm dripped bitterness. "To let me live in ignorance because it didn't matter. Did you ever think that it might matter to me?" She looked up, eyes red and swollen. I was a coward. "I'm sorry." The old me, the man who loved her unconditionally, might have offered comfort. But that man was gone, replaced by someone else. Someone who saw the world as a cold place of half-truths and illusions. I rose from the table, taking the envelope in hand. Without another word, I went upstairs, leaving her sobbing in the kitchen. The turning point came the next day. I'd spent the night on the couch, staring at the ceiling, the test results echoing in my mind. By morning, my decision was made. I would leave, but not before I confronted Marcus Hayes face to face. I needed that closure, that savage sense of justice. I found his address tucked in Lily's purse. She'd scribbled it on the back of a receipt. It was a clinic in the city where he worked as a physical therapist. My heart hammered as I drove there, each passing streetlight fueling my anger. I stepped inside the pristine waiting room with its bland walls and motivational posters. A receptionist smiled politely. "Hi, do you have an appointment?" "No," I said. "I'm here to see Marcus Hayes." The receptionist asked for my name, and I gave it. Moments later, a tall, broad-shouldered man appeared from the back hallway. He had that easy confidence I'd pictured, wearing a collared shirt and khakis. His face was handsome, well-groomed beard, bright eyes. I felt an instant rush of loathing. I could see why she was drawn to him. He exuded charm from every pore. "Jonathan Reed?" he asked, brow furrowed in confusion. I nodded. "We need to talk." We stepped outside onto the sidewalk. A flicker of recognition dawned in his eyes. "You're Lily's husband." He sounded cautious. I said nothing, letting the silence press on him. He spoke again. "Look, man, I didn't want any trouble. Lily told me you guys were separated." "That's a lie," I spat. "I'm sure you've seen a lot of lies from her, or maybe you both enjoy them together." He shifted his stance. "Hey, I'm sorry if this is messing with your life. I never planned on." "You slept with my wife," I interrupted, voice trembling with suppressed rage. I wanted to punch him, right there on the sidewalk, see his confident face crumble. But a part of me knew physical violence wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I gave him a cold stare. "Whatever you think you have with her, you can keep it." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm done," I said. "You won. You can have her." My voice nearly cracked, but I forced it steady. "Take care, though. She lies just as easily as she breathes. If you think this is special, it's not. And if you think this is the only lie, it's not." For a moment, he looked taken aback, uncertain whether to speak or remain silent. I saw in his eyes a flicker of guilt. "Jonathan," he began. I didn't. I turned and walked away, not letting him finish. My revenge would be leaving them to wallow in the mess they'd created. Let them have their illusions. Let Lily cry about how she never meant for this to happen. I wouldn't stand around to watch them piece together whatever miserable arrangement they had. My final blow was the knowledge that I was stepping away and forcing them to face reality, or bury themselves deeper in lies. I hoped it would haunt them both, the price they paid for a fleeting thrill. The drive home felt surreal, like I was outside my own body, watching the city pass by. When I arrived, Lily was waiting in the living room, perched on the couch. She must have guessed where I'd gone because the instant I walked in, she rose. "Did you see him?" she asked, eyes damp. I nodded. I said my piece. She swallowed hard, wringing her hands. "And now what?" "Jonathan, please. We can talk. We can figure something out." "Figure something out," I echoed, a hollow laugh escaping my lips. "Like what?" "You lied to me for years. You took advantage of my love, my loyalty, and my trust. Then you cheated on me, and that's after lying about Michael's parentage. Now you want to figure something out." "Lily, there's nothing left to figure out." Her shoulders sagged. Tears started down her cheeks. She took a step toward me, but I backed away, raising a hand. "Don't," I said. "Don't come closer. It's done. Jonathan, She choked on her words. "I'm sorry. I love you." A fierce ache seized my chest. I still loved her, even then. Maybe I always would. But love doesn't excuse betrayal. Love doesn't erase 6 years of deceit or the humiliation of discovering I was the last to know my own life. My voice softened, just a fraction. You should have told me the truth, I said. I was willing to love you through anything. But not this. She reached for me again. I could see desperation in her eyes. I swear, she said, Marcus was just. I felt lonely, and I know that's not an excuse, but it's the truth, right? My voice came out sharper than I intended. You wanted excitement, something I wasn't giving you. And Michael's father was someone else entirely, but you decided to let me believe he was mine because it was convenient. Do you see how impossible it is for me to stay? She opened her mouth, no doubt to plead, but the words never came. I headed upstairs, ignoring the trembling in my hands, and packed a suitcase with methodical care. Each shirt I folded felt like a farewell to a memory. Weekends at the lake, birthdays, anniversaries. I placed my socks neatly, tucked the corners in, zipped the bag. Then I took off my wedding band, the ring that symbolized vows she'd broken, and I set it on her pillow. Let her wake up with that cold piece of metal staring back at her. Let it remind her of what she'd thrown away. Downstairs, Lily waited, tears rolling unchecked. She watched me in silence as I walked to the front door. When I placed my hand on the knob, she found her voice at last. Jonathan, she pleaded. Don't go. Please. I'll do anything. I'll beg. I'll leave him. I'll tell the truth. Just give me a chance. I paused, looking at the floor for a moment. My voice, when it came, was hoarse. It's too late. She sobbed, one hand clasped to her mouth to stifle the sound. I opened the door. The midday sun blasted in, but it felt cold as a winter dawn. That was the moment it fully sank in. This was my house, my home for so many years, and I was walking away, because it was already gone, in spirit. The foundation rotted from within. I didn't look back as I stepped outside. I drove to a motel on the outskirts of town, where the neon sign buzzed in the gloaming. My mind was a tempest of regret, anger, and heartbreak. In that cramped motel room, with threadbare curtains, I let myself feel the weight of it all. I nearly smashed my phone when she tried to call, letting it ring until the screen went dark. I was too exhausted to think, too wounded to cry. Lying on the lumpy bed, I stared at the ceiling and replayed the day's events over and over, each memory like a needle jabbing my heart. Eventually, I dozed off. My dreams were nightmares of Lily and Marcus, of Michael calling out for me while I stood helplessly. In the morning, I paid for another night, dreading the idea of searching for an apartment or explaining this fiasco to my colleagues. But I had to move on. She had our house, and I had my pride, tattered though it was. I managed to function on autopilot for a while. I rented a small place near the industrial side of town, close to work. The days became a blur of packing up what was left of my stuff, signing forms, and ignoring texts from Lily. I blocked Marcus's number when he attempted to reach out. I changed my routine entirely. No more early dinners at home. No more quiet weekends in the garage with Michael. That part shattered me the most. I missed the kid desperately. But I couldn't bring myself to see him, not until I figured out how to process the fact he wasn't mine by blood. And yet, a voice inside me whispered, "He's still your son in every way that matters." Another voice countered, "No, she lied to you." None of it was real. My torment was constant. Weeks turned into months. Lawyers got involved for the divorce process. Lily wanted to talk custody arrangements for Michael. She insisted that Michael saw me as his father, that he loved me. Part of me wanted to be there for him. Another part felt utterly betrayed and confused. My attorney suggested I seek therapy to sort through the emotional fallout, but I refused at first, too proud to open my wounds to a stranger. Eventually, though, I realized I couldn't handle the weight alone, so I signed up for a few sessions. It helped, if only by giving me space to speak the truth out loud. I still love Lily, but I can't forgive her. I love Michael, but I'm angry he's not my blood. I want revenge, but I also want peace. My therapist just nodded, letting me talk until my throat was raw. The divorce came through quietly one rainy afternoon. The settlement was straightforward enough. She kept the house for Michael's sake. I took an apartment across town. I agreed to pay some child support, even if biologically he wasn't mine. Part of me felt it was the right thing to do. I'd raised him for 6 years after all. Another part raged at the injustice. In the end, I told my lawyer I couldn't let my resentment harm Michael. He was innocent. If that meant losing a chunk of my income, so be it. One night, Lily called. I almost didn't answer, but her name flashed on the screen, and some remnant of care, maybe love, maybe curiosity, made me swipe to accept the call. "Hi, Jonathan," she said. Her voice sounded small. I grunted in acknowledgement. I was sitting in my dark living room, the only light coming from a street lamp outside the window. "How are you?" she asked, a tremor to her tone. I chewed my lip before replying. "I'm alive. That's all I can say." A pause. Then, "Michael misses you." My eyes pricked with tears I refused to shed. "I miss him too." Silence stretched between us, thick with the ghosts of what we'd been. Finally, she said, "Jonathan, I don't expect anything. But if you ever want to see him, you can. He still asks about you. He wonders why you don't come by." My heart twisted, waves of guilt rolling over me. Tell him I'll try," I managed, voice trembling. Then I hung up, not waiting for a response. I buried my face in my hands, letting the darkness close in. Over time, rage gave way to a dull ache. Each day, I woke up, went to work, came home, repeated. People talk about heartbreak as if it's dramatic, but often it's just silent and persistent, wearing you down day by day. Some nights, I dreamed of the day Lily and I first met. On a college campus, bright sunshine, me stumbling over a greeting. She'd laughed, calling me cute in a self-deprecating way. We fell in love. That memory haunted me because it was pure, untainted by the lies that would come. Occasionally, I thought about Marcus, whether he was still in her life or if they'd self-destructed. I found I didn't care as much as I expected. He was a symptom, not the real cause. The real cause was Lily's inability to tell me the truth, to share the weight of her mistakes. She'd chosen secrets over honesty. And that, more than anything, had destroyed us. I saw Michael once, about 3 months after the divorce, at a birthday party for Lily's nephew. We both ended up there unexpectedly. I recognized him instantly, his bright smile that had always warmed my heart. He lit up when he saw me. Without hesitation, he ran over, hugging my waist. "Dad!" he cried out, face shining. I bent down, hugging him back fiercely. The child's warmth, his innocence, brought a surge of tears to my eyes. My love for him was real, even if he wasn't mine by blood. Lily stood across the yard, hands clasped, eyes wet, watching us. For a fleeting second, our gazes met, and I saw a yearning there, a sorrowful regret. But the moment passed. She looked away, and so did I. Sometimes, people ask me if I'm over it. The short answer is no. Betrayal leaves a scar that never fully fades, a reminder that the life I'd built was not as solid as I believed. But I learned to live with the pain. I channeled it into forging a new existence. I picked up an old hobby, fixing cars, turning wrenches in a rented garage on weekends. The mechanical nature of it soothed me, gave me something tangible to control. Work was steady, if unexciting, but it paid the bills. My heart, that was another story. I wasn't ready to trust again. Maybe someday, but not yet. As for Lily, we kept contact minimal. The divorce was final, the property settled. Occasionally, we emailed about Michael's well-being. She once wrote me an apology that spanned 3 pages, describing how she was lost, how she clung to me for stability, but found herself craving something else. She said she never wanted to hurt me, that she still loved me in her own way. I read it once, then filed it away in a drawer. Love can exist even in the ruins, I suppose, but it doesn't change the past. Then came the day of Michael's school event, his first performance in a school play. He was a tree, wearing a silly green costume that dwarfed his small frame. Lily was there too, standing beside me in the auditorium, an uneasy camaraderie between us. We watched him recite his lines. He did fine, though he stumbled once, cheeks reddening. I felt a swell of pride. I glanced sideways at Lily. She was smiling, tears in her eyes, clapping for our boy. Our boy. Even if biology said otherwise, my heart wouldn't deny the bond. For a moment, we shared that feeling. The wonder of seeing Michael become his own person. The applause faded, and I realized that we would forever be linked by this child, however complicated or painful it might be. Afterwards, Lily approached me. "He wants to take pictures with us," she murmured. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring, of course, and I noticed a subtle sadness in her eyes. We stepped outside, past the swirl of parents and kids. Michael bounded over, an excited grin on his face, the big green costume rustling. "Dad, can you hold my costume helmet?" he asked, tugging at the oversized hood. I took it from him, my grip a little shaky. He called me Dad so naturally, it was both a stab and a balm. Lily and I posed beside him for a photo, some other parent kindly snapping the picture. In that instant, I felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Pain, regret, but also a surge of love for this little life we'd raised. The camera clicked. I smiled, though tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. Lily's arm brushed mine. Neither of us moved away, but neither did we meet each other's gaze. We just stood there, unified for a snapshot we both knew would be bittersweet. Months later, I received a message from Lily, saying Michael wanted to show me something he'd drawn at school. Against my better judgment, I agreed to swing by the old house. Pulling into the driveway felt surreal, like stepping into a dream. The flower beds were different. The porch had new paint, but there were reminders of the past in every corner. The wind chimes I'd hung still clanged softly in the breeze. I rang the doorbell. She answered, offering a tentative smile. I stepped inside, seeing that she'd rearranged furniture, maybe trying to exorcise the ghosts of our old life. Michael ran up, thrilled, waving a sheet of paper. He'd drawn a stick figure family, him in the middle, Lily on one side, me on the other. We were all holding hands, big smiles on our faces. My heart twisted. "It's us," he said proudly. I crouched down to his level. "That's amazing, buddy. Good job." My voice wavered, but I managed to smile. He beamed. Lily watched, tears shimmering. Then Michael hopped off to watch TV, leaving us alone in the living room. The tension was tangible but subdued. She cleared her throat. "Would you like some coffee?" I made a fresh pot. "All right," I said. We walked to the kitchen together, 1,000 memories swirling. Late-night snacks, morning coffees, lazy Sundays that now felt like illusions. She poured 2 mugs. For a moment, we stood in silence, sipping. Then she whispered, "I know you don't owe me anything, but thank you for coming." I merely nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Her eyes glistened. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. You're still Michael's father, Jonathan, no matter what the DNA says." My grip tightened on the mug. "I'm trying to figure out what that means," I said quietly. "But I do love him. I always will." She lowered her gaze. "I know. I'm sorry I made it so complicated, so complicated." That was the understatement of the year. We stood there, words failing us. In the distance, Michael laughed at something on the TV. I will always be tied to this woman, I realized, through this boy we both love. The thought both comforted and tormented me. Finally, I set my coffee down. "It's time I go," I said. My voice sounded calm, though my heart thundered. She nodded, blinking rapidly. "Take care, Jonathan." I turned toward the door. As I walked away, I heard her whisper something faint. Maybe my name, or maybe "I love you." I couldn't be sure. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood, and I pulled the door shut behind me. I stood on the porch for a moment, breathing in the cool air. The old wind chimes rattled again, a soft, sorrowful melody. Stepping off that porch felt like stepping away from the final piece of my old life. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger, it would linger, perhaps forever, but I also felt a glimmer of relief. I'd done what I could. I'd survived the worst of it, found the strength to walk away. And I knew that, deep down, I still loved her in some capacity, perhaps a love forever marked by betrayal, but love nonetheless. Because she said something about missing the way I used to grill steaks, about how Michael still asked for my special barbecue sauce. Then she said, "I hope you're doing well." Really? I looked at her, saw the sorrow etched in her face. Part of me wanted to scream, "You ruined us." Another part wanted to say, "I ruined us too, by not seeing the signs earlier." But I only nodded. "I'm okay," I replied. Then, "Take care," and walked away. That was the last time we had any semblance of a private conversation. After that, life became a series of postcards from reality. An update on Michael, a Christmas card, a mention of a new job. I found a measure of peace. Bitter, yes, but real. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. Tonight, as I sit in my quiet apartment, finishing this silent monologue in my head, I feel a weight lift. The TV is off. The lights are dim. The divorce papers lie in a dusty folder under my desk. Final and absolute. The bruise on my heart, it still aches, but it's healed enough for me to breathe. I think about Lily's final plea. "Don't go, please," and about how I left anyway, leaving my wedding band on her pillow, refusing to give her more excuses. A part of me wonders if I should have handled it differently, if I should have given her a chance to redeem herself. But that's a younger man's question. I'm older now, more jaded maybe, but also more certain that a marriage built on deception is no marriage at all. At the end of it all, I close my eyes and let the memory of her fade into the darkness. My last words to her echoing in my mind. It's too late. Because sometimes endings can't be undone. The bedside lamp flickers once, as if protesting the gloom, then plunges the room into darkness. End.